You know that feeling when you're scrolling online, right? And you see just yet another perfect vacation shot, or maybe a shiny new car, someone showing off some like high-end gadget.
Oh, yeah, all the time.
It definitely sparks some curiosity, like what's the real story there? So today on the deep dive, we're really getting into how people show their wealth, or maybe what looks like wealth, online and, in real life too.
Mm.
We've gathered a bunch of really fascinating firsthand accounts, stories, observations from online forums. Gives us a real ground level view.
Yeah, some really interesting perspectives in there.
So, our goal today for you listening is to sort of get a handle on why some people go for this, conspicuous consumption, the social media flexing, and also explore the other side, the quieter stuff, the subtle signs, or maybe just no signs at all of financial comfort.
Right, the whole spectrum.
Exactly. We're going to take a good look at that phrase, money talks, wealth whispers, and see if it actually holds up based on these, well, real life stories.
Okay, so diving in, what really jumps out from these accounts is just how different people are in how they present themselves. It's a stark contrast.
Yeah. Like what?
Well, take that example of the person someone described.
Yeah.
Super cool, really down to earth when you meet them.
Okay.
But then you look at their Facebook or Instagram or whatever, and it's just relentless. Constant posts about fancy vacations, home renovation.
Oh, right. I know the type.
It's like you're seeing two completely different people.
Totally. It feels like a performance, doesn't it? Like specifically for that online audience.
Exactly, a performance.
Yeah.
And then you've got the total opposite, like the story about the husband's family.
Ah, yes. That was fascinating.
Here's a family, clearly wealthy, multiple homes, big summer place, the works.
Right. Significant assets.
But their day-to-day look, it's incredibly um, unassuming. We're talking Uniqlo jackets at events,
Yeah.
shopping at Costco. It really pushes back against that idea that wealth always has to be loud.
That detail about the embroidered Uniqlo jackets paired with, like, nice handbags is so specific, isn't it?
It really is telling.
It makes you think they focus on quality, where they really value it, maybe the handbags, but for everyday things. Practicality, value.
Precisely. It suggests a different set of priorities.
So this brings up a point right away, I think. We're seeing these different ways of showing wealth. You've got the, let's call it performative wealth, all the online flexing.
Hmm.
And then this quiet wealth example, if we kind of categorize them, it helps us figure out the why behind it all.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, I mean, it's obvious how social media just amplifies everything and, well, distorts things too.
For sure. A total distortion field sometimes.
The sources we looked at have these really vivid examples. People carefully crafting an online image, making it look like they're super affluent, but it doesn't always match up with their actual bank account.
Like how? What are they doing?
Well, the watch that just happens to be visible in every shot.
The strategic watch placement? Yes.
Or taking photos in front of fancy cars or yachts that aren't theirs. Maybe they don't explicitly say it's theirs, but the implication is there.
Right. Borrowing the background glamour.
Yeah, or even just like reposting old vacation photos again and again to keep up this vibe of constantly luxurious life. It creates this illusion.
So when you're scrolling through that feed, you got to remember these examples, these curated realities. It definitely changes how you see those perfect online lives.
It really does put it in perspective.
And just think about the effort, the sheer amount of work to keep that whole thing going. One person in the source material actually called it exhausting.
I bet it is exhausting.
It makes you really wonder what's driving it. Is it just needing that external thumbs up? Because, like another source mentioned, the people they knew in college who were genuinely, like, really wealthy,
Yeah.
they didn't do that. They weren't constantly posting flashy stuff online.
Mm-hmm. Which brings us right back to that saying, doesn't it? Money talks, wealth whispers.
Exactly. Does it hold true?
Well, our sources give us, it's a mixed bag, really.
Yeah.
Nuanced view. On one side, you have stories that definitely support it.
Like the college friends.
Right, the quiet, wealthy college friends. And that observation someone made about people whose cars are worth more than their houses, that fits the money talks part, maybe showing off the immediate asset.
Okay, yeah. Prioritizing the visible status symbol.
It lines up with that idea that if you're truly secure, you don't need to shout about it.
But there's always a but.
There's always a but. You've got counter-arguments that are just as compelling. Think about some tech billionaires. Okay, maybe they wear jeans and a T-shirt,
The hoodie uniform, yeah.
but their wealth is very public, right? Huge company buyouts, space projects. It's not exactly whispering.
That's a very good point. It's loud in a different way.
And then there's the historical angle. Someone brought up the Gilded Age, the Vanderbilts, the Astors. That wasn't quiet wealth. That was incredibly flashy. Palatial mansions, over-the-top parties.
So this whole wealth whispers thing might be more recent, or maybe selective.
Could be. Or, as one source kind of suggested, maybe it's a bit of wealth worship from people not in those circles. Idealizing a certain kind of understated image.
Interesting take. Romanticizing the quietness.
It's possible.
Yeah.
And that perspective from the person who said they're now relatively well off, that was really insightful.
Yeah, what did they say again?
They talked about how they just don't desire the luxury stuff anymore. The satisfaction comes from experiences or just, not having that financial pressure. That relief is the luxury.
Not the designer bag.
Not the designer bag.
What?
And they asked that killer question. Do you really want or need it? Or do you just want other people to know that you have it?
Oof, that hits hard.
It really cuts to the chase, doesn't it? The core motivation. Is it for you or for them?
It really does. And, well, that question leads us straight into some of the more, let's say, eyebrow-raising spending habits we saw in the sources.
Oh, yeah. There were some good ones.
Like the immediate red flag example, buying a brand new, say, $80,000 SUV.
Right. The Tahoe.
And then, literally 2 weeks later, there's a GoFundMe because their dog needs surgery.
Yikes. Yeah. That suggests a major disconnect, right, between the outward show and the actual financial reality.
To put it mildly.
And the whole discussion around buying, like, a 10-year-old used luxury car. That's another classic example.
Why is that so common?
Well, the appeal of the badge, the status symbol. People want the BMW or the Mercedes look, but maybe they overlook or underestimate the huge potential maintenance costs, especially on older models.
Ah, the hidden costs.
Exactly. That's saying there's nothing more expensive than a cheap German car. There's a lot of truth in that. It's chasing the image without the financial backup.
It really is. And that anecdote about someone buying a Tesla.
Oh, the Tesla to drive for Uber.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of shocking, isn't it? It just shows the crazy lengths people might go to get that status symbol, even if it makes zero practical or financial sense.
Creates a total contradiction.
Yeah.
Buying a premium electric car because you need to earn money driving.
Lord.
And this sort of connects to that other observation people made about the entitled driver thing.
What was that again?
People noticing a pattern with drivers of ridiculous vehicles, the huge lifted trucks, big boats on trailers.
Oh, right. Driving aggressively.
Yeah, driving aggressively, inconsiderately, sometimes dangerously. And the theory floated was that maybe these vehicles sort of amplify a pre-existing attitude, an entitled or aggro mentality.
That's provocative. Like the vehicle enables or magnifies that behavior.
Could be. And it makes you wonder, is the vehicle itself part of projecting that dominance, that status on the road? Even if it's all financed, as many pointed out.
Right, adding another layer of potential stress or posturing. And then moving from vehicles to food, there's purely performative consumption.
Yes, the perfect example.
Yeah.
The $50 steak that comes with, what, $6 worth of gold foil on it?
Yes, the gold leaf steak.
I mean, the gold adds zero flavor. It's purely for show. For the gram, maybe. For the novelty.
It has to be.
And the comment about shiny poops being the only possible reason to try it, it just highlights how absurd it can get. Consumption, just for the sake of the spectacle.
Totally absurd. And, on a related note, but slightly different, buying knockoffs, fake luxury goods.
Yeah. The fake bags, fake watches.
It points to the same kind of desire, right? Projecting the image, getting those visual cues recognized, but without the actual financial outlay.
It's all about signaling. Sending that message, even if the message itself isn't authentic. It shows how much that perception of status matters to some people, maybe even more than the real thing.
Which highlights how social signaling can just completely override genuine value sometimes.
And what's really revealing is how these displays, whether they're real wealth or just pretending, can lead to some really weird behaviors.
Okay, like what?
Well, that story about the workplace, where some staff apparently wouldn't clean up after themselves.
Get out! Why not?
Because they believed, get this, that cleaning up was something poor people did. That leaving a mess for others to handle was somehow a sign of being rich.
That is, wow, that's bizarre. And incredibly entitled.
Deeply flawed thinking, right? And what a stark contrast that is to the other example. The genuinely wealthy grandmother.
Oh, right, the opposite end of the spectrum.
Exactly, someone with real financial security, but her priorities, quality, reliability, not showing off,
Driving Toyotas.
Driving Toyotas for years, wearing the same kinds of clothes, getting the same simple breakfast for decades. It just screams quiet confidence. Zero need for external validation through stuff.
It's a completely different mindset.
Totally. And then there's that seemingly contradictory situation. People with low incomes driving luxury cars. How does that happen?
Yeah, that seems counterintuitive.
Well, one explanation offered relates to potentially Medicaid asset limits. Apparently, in some cases, your primary vehicle doesn't count against asset limits from eligibility.
Ah, so it's a loophole. Or an unintended consequence of policy.
Could be. It might inadvertently create a situation where owning a nicer car doesn't penalize you in the same way other assets might. It shows how systems can create weird incentives sometimes.
Interesting. But not all displays are just about questionable choices or system quirks. Some are, well, darker.
Definitely. The sources brought up more troubling stuff, too. Outright scams and facades.
Like the person scamming people for travel money?
Yeah, conning people just to fund a glamorous social media feed.
Yeah.
Posting pictures from trips paid for by deception. That's a stark reminder of how far some might go for that image.
Truly disturbing.
And the story about the hairstylist. Had the fancy cars, looked the part.
Right, until the facade slipped.
Exactly. Took a vacation she apparently couldn't really afford. Money got tight, and the illusion kind of crumbled. It just shows how unsustainable living purely for appearances can be.
It eventually catches up with you.
Almost always. And then anecdote from the car dealership.
Yeah.
The person bragging loudly about always upgrading, just rolling over loans
Oh
constantly.
yeah, the easy mark.
That's what someone called them. It's someone confusing constant debt cycling with financial success. Just prioritizing the newest shiny thing over any kind of long-term stability.
It's like status consumption gone wild, right? Where the social boost feels more important than the actual financial cost. Leads to bad decisions.
Definitely. And I think ultimately so much of this circles back to that one really powerful quote someone shared.
Which one was that?
Spending money, you don't have to buy things you don't need to impress people that you actually hate.
Wow, yeah. That's blunt, but probably true a lot of the time.
Incredibly accurate, I think, for a lot of the behavior we're seeing described.
Yeah.
It nails the core issue.
And those final examples really hammer it home. The politician running as a supposed billionaire, but, selling sneakers and trading cards.
Right. The contrast.
Or the people who, scream at service workers while driving the most basic, least special luxury car. It just seems like it's often this superficial performance, maybe aimed at the wrong people, and fueled more by insecurity than anything else.
Yeah, insecurity seems like a key driver in many cases, not genuine enjoyment or comfort.
So when we look at all these stories, all these different approaches, the big question hanging there is, what's really motivating people? Why present your financial status in one way versus another?
Is it truly about appreciating quality or aesthetics? Or is it, like we said, that deep need for validation for social approval?
Or maybe it's more complex, like constructing an identity, especially now in this super digital world.
Exactly. And these personal accounts really just drive home how tangled that relationship is between money, what we own, and who we are, or who we want people to think we are, especially online.
Yeah, the curated profiles, the deliberate purchases, even the carefully chosen lack of display. It all tells a story. But the truth behind it, often way more complicated than it looks on the surface.
Which kind of leads to a final thought, maybe something for listeners to chew on.
Okay, leave us with something to think about.
Well, considering everything we've talked about, the really loud displays, the quiet signals, the fakes, the scams, what do you actually think are the most genuine indicators of, say, wealth or just well-being?
That's a good question. What signals authenticity?
Right. And maybe more importantly, why do you think those particular indicators feel more real or carry more weight than all the performative stuff we discussed? It's a chance to kind of reflect on your own values, I guess, versus the appearances we see all around us.